Hello, I'm Dee. I am a singer songwriter, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Yeah. My name is Abhay Dandekar, and I share conversations with talented and interesting individuals linked to the global Indian and South Asian community. It's informal and informative, adding insights to our evolving cultural expressions, where each person can proudly say, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." Hi everyone, on this episode of Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing, we share a conversation with singer and artist Dhee. Stay tuned. As always, thank you for listening and watching and making Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing part of your day. I know it takes time and effort, and so I appreciate you engaging with me here and for sharing this with all your family and friends. And if you're enjoying these and if you can support the show, please take a moment and share a kind rating or submit a written review wherever you're getting this right now. You know, one of the themes of conversation with hundreds of guests now on the show has been showcasing unique ways that people connect their dots and express the many intersections that they live in, artistically, professionally, and personally. Sometimes there's an obvious craving to link all those expressions together, and other times it's just beautifully expressed so naturally without too much fuss or even any need to call it out. And so that's where I found myself in sharing a conversation with the talented Deekshita Venkadesan, a Sri Lankan-born, Sydney, Australia-raised, Tamilian-rooted singer who's also known professionally as Dhee. She's been singing and recording for over a decade with award-winning playback credits in Tamil, Telugu, and Malayalam, including the very popular Enjoy Enjami and the Filmfare award-winning Kattu Payala. This past year, that natural expression has also come through singing foundationally about her Sri Lankan story in English with I Wear My Roots Like a Medal, and the very soulful Can't You Stay a Little Longer, part of her upcoming English album called Jackfruit, while also exploring new space in Hindi and collaborating with Diljit Dosanjh on Nine Mataka. So it was great to catch up with Dhee and chat about those explorations and feeling at home and how she learns from each collaboration. But I was first curious to know how her love of music gets tested, perhaps, with loving the process of making music.
I think I love it so much in general, so it doesn't feel like it's a struggle to love it every day. It's tough being vulnerable sometimes in music. I think that's something that I can sort of struggle with sometimes because I feel like you're thinking a lot, it's like, can I say that? Can I actually say that in my song? Like, can I do this?
Right. And because you love it so much and because the art itself is at the core of who you are, has that process and that pace, even some of the grind of being vulnerable in the studio or on stage during a performance, has that part become that much easier, right? That or is it such that no, every time I go on stage, there's still the butterflies, there's still pieces there that I need to kind of work, and have you developed even maybe a different process now as compared to when you were first starting out?
Yeah, I think I still get really nervous when I go on stage, but I think it's a bit different to like before, where it's kind of like I get overwhelmingly nervous, and now it's a bit more like I enjoy it. It's that it's a feeling that I enjoy. I think I should probably I'd always want to feel it, I think. I think there's something about that.
Kind of that good nervous energy.
Yeah, because I think it's because I respect the stage. I feel like it's that because I think I respect being there.
Do you, by the way, that word respect? I mean, do you feel like now, compared to when you were first starting out, is there maybe a different respect for the process and all the things that go into putting on a stage performance, getting a studio album out there? Has that part, sort of evolved over time?
It's a lot of work. So I think like putting out an album is like, it takes so much out of you. And for me, at least for me, I can speak for myself. It takes a lot out of me. And I think, but it's my favorite thing to do. It's like, I love it, So I think even doing shows, you put a lot of like energy into it, right? So, but I would never trade it for anything. I would never sort of trade any part of it. So yeah, I think it's something, and I love the process. Like the process is what I really love as well. Like even though
Yeah.
it takes a lot out of me, it's something that I really enjoy. I love practicing. I love rehearsing. I love
Mm.
rehearsals. I love I in general I love practicing and learning. And I
Yeah.
think even being on stage is kind of like practice.
Each iteration gets better and better and
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So
Are there things that you perhaps in the beginning of your career or when you were first starting out that seemed much more like a chore that now you appreciate that much more and you do find that like wow, this is something that I never thought that I would really really enjoy,
yeah.
and yet part of that process is kind of like, these days you're just like, no, I really I love that part, whereas in the beginning perhaps that never made so much sense to you.
Yeah, I think it's probably like recording because I've always loved performing
Mm,
so much. And it was only like later in like, I think when I was like 15, 16 is when obviously 14 when I got into a studio, or 15 and even then I wasn't really comfortable singing to a mic because I'm so used to singing out,
yeah.
right? So like that was new for me, and I was like, oh, okay, this is new. Like recording in a studio, like in a room, that's a different,
No audience. Yeah, totally
yeah,
different.
that's a different thing, right? I think I really learned to love that. Like I really, honestly, I think it's just now it's sort of something that it feels like a safe space in a way.
Mm,
I love being
yeah.
in the studio as much as I love being on stage, and I really enjoy this. Like this is like right now, this is my little studio, and I really enjoy
Mm,
being in this space and
yeah.
um, working. So
Yeah, yeah, and sort of like if it's a safe space, it means that
yeah,
you can sort of be yourself and be even more authentic and even more vulnerable and kind of let yourself go in that way. With the upcoming album Jackfruit, I'm sure it was a super just sort of labor of love and really some deep storytelling that comes from that. I'm always so curious to understand from artists, how do you know? I mean, especially as you just mentioned that you've grown to love and really enjoy even more the studio environment and it's a safe space. But how do you know perhaps when a song is finished? Like when do you like know that like okay, I don't know what it is, but that's it. It feels complete. It feels like I have finished something that I'm proud of and that I want to get out there.
that's a great question. I actually don't know because I struggle with that. I really struggle with that because but you know what? I think there's a point where it feels like, for me it feels like I've said what I need to say, and I've sort of
Mm,
I can hear the song and hear it. I can hear it the way like I love it. I love listening
yeah,
to it. Or it's in sort of I don't know. It's that like you feel like it's ready. And I think I've only
yeah,
recently started feeling that. So for the longest time, I struggled with that, like sort of feeling like that it's done,
yeah.
it's ready. I've I've struggled with that, but now I'm kind of like now I think I'm like I do feel like, okay, this is ready to be out. This,
Does
yeah.
it have to feel sort of like, do you sometimes have to come back to the song and even like a recording and say, you know what, look, I need to let this marinate for a little bit and figure it out? Or are there, different times where you're just like, okay, I don't know what that was, but that's it. And it feels right. And I can hear it and I can see it as I'm performing it. And I imagine that there's an element of having a sort of out of body experience going like, yeah, boy, something about that just feels right.
Yeah. So sometimes, like the first version ends up being the favorite thing,
Yeah.
and I think that's like they call it the dematitis as well. It's like your first
Yeah.
version you kind of get, but I think there's been so many instances where I was like, okay, this is not ready yet. I kind of go back and forth. I revisit the song so many times, even like lyrics, even
Yeah.
melody sometimes, even yeah, just like lyric, melody, just arrangement. Sort of we play around with it
Mm,
a lot. So sometimes it's kind of like I go back and forth. Sometimes it's
yeah.
just like, hey, this is it. I think this is like
Yeah.
it sounds, and those songs end up being really fun, to be fair, because
Right.
it's just like straight up instinct, right? So
Yeah.
by fun, I mean it ends up being very, yeah, I think it just ends up being more honest as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
So
that honesty and fun come from being more comfortable with your instinct, especially as you mature and develop and get more experience as an artist?
I think so. And I think it's also just like being comfortable with yourself as well. Like
Yeah.
a big part of it is that too. I think it's like, I feel like for me, it's like when I feel like, okay, I'm honest to myself. If I end up really feeling very happy about it and a
Mm.
lot more, even though it might be very embarrassing, I might be a bit like, I feel a bit like vulnerable about it. It
Yeah.
still ends up for me feeling like, okay, I've done my part, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Sort of putting your best self out there.
yeah, yeah, that ends up kind of feeling a bit more satisfying.
You're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. After a quick break, we'll come back to our conversation with singer and artist Dhee. Stay tuned. Conversation. It's the antidote to apathy and the catalyst for relationships. I'm Abhay Dandekar, and I share conversations with global Indians and South Asians so everyone can say, trust me, I know what I'm doing. New episodes weekly, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Hi, I'm music recording artist Sid Sriram, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Hi, this is Madhuri Dixit.
Hi, this is Farhan Akhtar.
Hi, this is Vidya Balan, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Hi, I'm Kani Kusrudi. I'm an actor, and you are listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Welcome back to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. Let's rejoin our conversation now with singer and music artist Dhee. I've been fascinated with some of your work and getting to listen more and more. And by the way, thank you for occupying a lot of my playlists these days. So that's great. You know, in making more English language music, and you know, I imagine it's somewhat of a pivot from Tamil and definitely from Telugu or even Malayalam and all those songs, at least thematically, when you think about the writing and the production part of it. And I'm sure a lot of was gained from sort of having some of the work now be in English, the language you kind of at least personally grew up speaking in Australia. I guess what I'm thinking about is that as there's so much gained from making an English language song or an English language album, I'm also curious, do you feel like anything was actually left behind? Was there anything lost from pivoting away from some of the South Asian language work that you've been doing?
I don't think so. No. I obviously like I'm singing in a different language to what I've been singing in movies. Like,
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I don't think I've left anything behind. I don't. Yeah. If that.
Instead, maybe is it sort of like hey, this was just a different part of me that I'm just finally getting out there and exploring.
So, like, what's really interesting for me, or like even for people around me, they've always felt like this is me. So this is like, so now I'm sort of realizing, oh, like that's like, like outside, that's not me. So only when I start releasing things, I'm like, oh, okay, it's like, yeah, this part of me has never been out,
right.
But this is like always been me, and it's always like I think for people like who sort of heard my music or who've kind of known me for years now, for them, they're like, this is the Dhee that we know. So it's very interesting that way. But I think when you sing in movies, it's not so personal, but like, but it becomes such a big part of your identity, right?
Right.
And you're singing for a movie, for a character, but it's amazing that how it ends up being such a big part of who you are, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm saying right a lot. I think it's like a new thing that I've like, I don't know where I picked it up.
Well, the thing is like, I've heard some of your work and your interviews in Tamil as well.
Oh, Tamil, yeah.
And you flow and you sound like you're being, so authentic and being yourself. And so I wonder if like, because it's so embedded that yes, they're film songs, yes, they're character songs, and yet it's a big part of who you are, that maybe pivot is the wrong word, and more that this is just more of, another form of expression for you. It's additive in that way. They both sort of are building blocks.
That's exactly, I think, how I feel, because I don't think I was never a different person singing like playback as well. I was still me. And I'm still me. So I think it's just a different expression. I think it's obviously when you write your music and you're composing, writing, there's obviously like every part of you's in there. So that's kind of the difference, I think. Even in like playback, I think I still remained independent.
When you think about all the different venues and the themes here, whether it's as an independent artist, whether it's in English, whether it's in another language, whether it's, part of a cinema or of a film, that there's always this kind of dance between exploration and comfort. That like, hey, this is something that I'm comfortable with. I can reproduce it. I can keep going with it. Or no, this is something kind of new, and it's a new exploration. It's a new addition. And it's a building block, as we talked about. And in thinking of yourself and doing this for over a decade now, how have you been able to weave and even find this concept of home in your music? Does that resonate with you? Is there a feeling of home that you find in your music, no matter what language or what venue or, what, theme it takes?
I do. I think for me, like, music is like this, it makes me feel very safe. It's the place where I can sort of like rest everything. Like rest whatever I'm feeling. It's that place, right? So it is home, and it's something that I've always had in my life. It's like my kind of like, I know it's corny, it's very corny to say, but it's like my first love as well. It is my first love,
right?
First and probably like hopefully consistent love. So, but yes,
I think it's safe to say that, right?
It is. It's my home. Like it is. Yeah. Like I think it's been there through everything, and I've sort of, it's where I put all my like rest my hat or whatever, everything. I rest everything. Right.
Do you have to, just like for anyone, right? Like people love their homes, and then they go and take vacations, and then they go out and explore. And for each of these explorations that you do, and whether they've been explorations so far or explorations in the future, is it important for you to have that sense of home and belonging and comfort and safety, yet at the same time like doing something that's brand new and innovative? And how do you sort of marry both of those together?
I think for me, every time I've sort of felt a little bit like, not uncomfortable, but sort of like just a little bit like not touching the ground, but a little like I'm floating, but I'm not really drowning. That spot has always been such a liberating place to be in. I don't know if I consciously try to be there, but I think naturally you sort of gravitate towards that spot. I don't think I've never really consciously thought about these things like while making music, but I think naturally you sort of, when you sort of make music and when you feel like you can't think of a reference, I always feel like that's a good thing. Like that's kind of like if I can't think of a reference for it, like a mixed reference or like any reference, I feel like that's kind of a really interesting place to be in. It's not like no one's doing anything absolutely original in this world that nobody else has done, but like I don't know, like it could be.
No, I love that. Yeah, I love how you put that when it's hard to come up for a reference for something, especially immediately, there's a tickle that comes from that, right? That's just sort of like, hey, that's something fresh, it's new, and
it's
yet
also scary as well. Like, oh no, what are we doing? What, like But it's
Right.
also, yeah, it's also like you said, it's a kind of a nice place to be in.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine that for you, it sort of like adds to sort of the adventure of all of this as well.
Yeah.
I was listening to Nai Mataka and thinking about, this as a Hindi song. And of course, I think one of your first Hindi songs.
My
Is that correct?
first. It's my
Very
first
first.
ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, I think about your English stuff. I think about all the other languages. Is there an intentionality, that idea that there's no real reference? And for you, this is now a new point of reference. Is there an intentionality in a way to having that versatility in all the different versions of your music? Does that add to the kind of feeling of home? Because there's just so many shapes to this, so many avatars of this, if you will.
I mean, I've never considered myself as like a versatile singer. And like, I've never thought about it like that. I've never considered myself, because I feel like I sing the only way I know how to sing.
Sure.
So it's just that I've been so lucky to be part of so many different songs and films, like so many different kind of songs that, and I've just been really blessed because someone thought, oh, Dhee would work in this,
Sure.
So I've just been lucky that way.
If you purposefully think about the versatility of this, simply because you're reaching so many different audiences with each language, and maybe that's just a natural, normal extension and reflection of who you are.
Yeah, I think like in a way, when you sing in so many different languages, and when you sing in so many different types of music as well, I think you're very lucky to be connecting with so many different people. And I think language is such a beautiful thing. For me, like, I love singing in different languages because I think and I love understanding them as well, obviously. But when that happens, I think it just opens this part of your, like, creatively as well. I think it's such an exciting thing to be singing in a different language, and also just connecting with people from different parts of the world and parts of the country, obviously.
No, 100%.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of yapping away, but
no, you're doing great. I mean, and you know what, yapping away, and whether that or not, the truth is that like you said, you're just connecting with so many more people who can now relate to you in a way. And when I think about, being able to have those opportunities, you've worked with some absolutely amazing producers and musical directors and other artists over the years. Those collaborations have been terrific, right? I mean, some of the best singers and musicians that are out there. When you build so many of these partnerships, and when you're reaching different audiences, and now and you're connecting with different people sort of artistically, what have you actually had to unlearn about yourself, perhaps each time that you have a collaboration, or that that you're discovering something new? Are there parts of yourself that you've had to say, like, I kind of need to unlearn and unwind this about myself?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't think, like, when I always walk into something feeling like I don't know anything. So like, I just sort of like, I try to be a sponge, and then I try to sort of absorb everything that I can. So I always feel like I don't know anything. So I've like never felt like I had to unlearn something. But
Sure.
I think maybe I think it's like I'm very self-critical. So sometimes when I walk into like a studio, I sometimes have to stop being so self-critical, and that's like and it's helpful because you're in an environment where you just have to trust someone. You have to trust. Right. So I just have to take a step back and not be self-critical.
Yeah. Has it built your confidence then with each of these?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've definitely felt like when you work with so many amazing talents, I think you end up learning so much, right? I think you learn a lot. I learn a lot from them. I think like I always walk away learning something new, like just even littlest thing, just could be like being very efficient with how you record things, or it could be the littlest to like really big things. So I learned so much. from every recording experience. Maybe when it comes to unlearning, I think, look, I truly feel like I like don't know anything. So I go
Sure.
in like feeling like I don't know anything. Like, and I'm ready to like, so that's why don't know if I had to unlearn something, except like maybe a lot of like the mental things that kind of happen, like being self-critical or being very like, oh, am I doing well? Am I doing this? All of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, I imagine that as someone who's put your art out there, you're constantly sharing your work. You're like you mentioned earlier, you're making yourself vulnerable either on the studio or on stage. Developing that confidence and feeling like you're not necessarily coming at a project where you have any ego. Is that also kind of a tough balance? Because at some level, developing that confidence, I imagine that it's tough to sometimes leave your ego outside the recording studio or outside off the stage.
Yeah, I think I try to like when I'm working with people, I try to be as like, you surrender to each other. I think that's like you sort of, and that's what makes it beautiful and fun when you can be collaborative. And I think every person that you work with, they have something amazing to contribute and to sort of for you to learn from, really, right? So I
Totally.
think I think like you just, whatever ego that you may have, you leave it behind, like, because
that probably adds to the music as well.
Yeah, because I think it's just, and I really in my head, I really don't think. I mean, I'm sure there's ego, but in music, I think that I feel like it shouldn't be there. I just sort of leave it behind because I think it's just about sort of learning and sharing, and I think it's beautiful when you don't have ego sort of, like looming over you.
Sure. Sort of liberating not to have that hanging over you.
Exactly. Sometimes I think sometimes we don't even know when it takes over. So that takes a lot of like reflecting, and sort of usually when I have to be in a room and I have to work with someone, it's so fun when you just sort of let yourself be open and be free and be honest with each other, then sort of have that like that, oh, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the collaborations, I imagine, get better. The music itself, and it comes back to the art and the music, and it sort of allows for a lot more focus on that.
Yeah.
You're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. After a quick break, we'll come back to our conversation with singer and artist Dhee. Every story told is a lesson learned, and every lesson learned is a story waiting to be told. I'm Abhay Dandekar, and I share conversations with global Indians and South Asians so everyone can say, trust me, I know what I'm doing. New episodes weekly, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Vivek Murthy. I'm the 21st Surgeon General of the United States, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tam France.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Hi, my name is Richa Morjani.
Hi, I'm Lily Singh, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Hi there, my name is Abhay Dandekar, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. Let's rejoin our conversation now with singer and artist Dhee. Your work and your music and your story live at so many intersections, right? Culturally, linguistically, nationally, artistically. How have you been able to sort of connect all the dots here? Does all of this make you a prouder Australian, or does it make you a more unique Sri Lankan or South Asian? Is there a way to connect all the dots, especially for those who are, getting to learn about your story more and more?
I think for me, it just sort of makes me, all of these things were sort of a result of me feeling comfortable with myself comfortable
Yeah.
in my own skin, comfortable with my everything. And it's taken me a really long time to sort of come to that place where I'm, truly happy with who I am and comfortable with who I am, just, and everything that sort of comes with it. So yes, I think like for me right now, I'm not like even thinking about my identity so much, because I think it's just you've come to a point where it's a part of you and it's there, and it's it's there. And I think like for me, if Fruit Song is if it's anything, it's the fact that I think I got to sort of express all of that into that song. And then once I put it out there, I think I was free. I was just liberated, and I think I could just now every time I talk about that song, it's very difficult for me to talk about it, because I feel like I've come to a different stage in a way, like to when I wrote it. I think that was when I was sort of I was obviously kind of not in a conflicted space. I was still sort of more resolved, but still, I had a lot more feelings about it. And now I think I'm just kind of in a different space. I think like when I think about these things, I just right now I'm just in a really comfortable space where I'm comfortable with who I am. So I'm not even thinking, oh, I'm very proud. I'm a very proud Tamil Australian. That's all, goes without saying. But it's not something that I'm giving a lot of thought to as much as I probably would have done at that point of time, if that makes sense. I don't know if that sort of...
No, it does. I mean, I think the consciousness of it is kind of more subtle, and it's not necessarily top of mind, and it's not at the forefront, and the music in a way sort of speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think I feel like that's what I'm sort of feeling, because it's just I've kind of I felt free, and I felt like I got it out of my chest and my shoulders as soon as I wrote. I was like, I can't write another song like this. Like, I don't think I can. That's what it felt like. I was like, I'm done. I've said everything I've needed to say. And every time I write a song, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I've said everything I've needed to say in this particular thing.
Right. I wonder, when the music, and this goes back to more the industry side here, when the music is tied so heavily to film and maybe other commercial anchors, how do artists and audiences cultivate and accelerate more trust in independent music? How can we find a happier level of understanding, and how do artists maybe take more control over that music making, independent of having to have it anchored in film and other commercial endeavors?
I think like as from an artist perspective, I think kind of now I think there's been a shift. I feel like there's a shift where independent music is actually redefining pop music. And I've been seeing that a lot, and I don't know. I think independent music is redefining pop, and artists are a lot more open to kind of talk about their stories and sing about their experiences, and very obviously be very personal with what's kind of going on in their life. That wasn't so as celebrated as it is now. I think at one point it was just all about film music, all about and now I think independent music is redefining, and I think when I can think of so many examples now that it's so amazing to see. So
and maybe that's a shift in the power structure also.
I think so, because now there's like a demand for honest storytelling, I think. And when that shift happens, I think people want to hear what you really want to say. I think they want to know. And I think that's also changing in films as well. I think even if you see the type of films that kind of are coming out or doing really well, they're usually it comes from a really personal space for the filmmaker as well. But I think mostly in music, I think that's been a huge shift. And that's been really nice to see, because it's like long overdue as well. So
Sure.
yeah.
For you, is that in a way, I mean, never mind the power part of this, and never mind the sort of having to anchor things to film and kind of this great, blossoming of independent music that's out there. But for you, is that kind of the secret of staying relevant in the industry? Just being honest about your work and on top of that, making music that sort of comes from your heart?
I don't know if it helps me be relevant, but I think it helps me. I think it just makes me feel like that's like, I feel like that's my purpose. So it makes me personally feel like I'm doing something that I should be doing. Or it's just, I think you constantly try to find a purpose, right? I think you're always through your art and whatever you do. And I think for me, I feel like, okay, when I speak about these things, hopefully someone else resonates with these things.
Yeah.
And I hope I make meaningful connections through this.
Sure.
And it brings me a lot of joy doing this. Yeah. And it's also difficult, but like it can, sometimes it is, sometimes it's the easiest thing to do. Sometimes it's like the hardest thing to do. So
I saw on Instagram a really lovely acoustic version of one of your songs, and the lyric that caught me, of course, is that the past is written on my body and the future is in my mind. And I'll get you out of here on this one. I was thinking, when it's all sort of said and done, and as your work evolves and your audiences grow, and those who are revisiting your music, and then those who are even learning about your music for the first time, what do you actually hope your legacy might be as an artist? What do you hope that your sort of lasting impressions are going to be on those folks who are rediscovering your music and those who are just, hearing it for the first time?
I think for me, when someone listens to my music, if they can sort of see themselves in it, and if they feel, I know a lot of my favorite artists have made me feel so many beautiful things. I felt seen. I felt like really sort of kind of understood what I'm feeling through listening to like a Nina Simone song, So I think if someone can listen to my music and sort of feel happy or feel better about something that they're going through, that would be like the biggest success for me. If they can listen to it and walk away feeling a certain kind of way that makes them feel better and sort of do this life thing in a more, I guess, happier way, or just, in any way that is progressive to them, that I would feel really amazing. And I think that would be the greatest legacy or whatever I can leave behind. So I think for me, it's just kind of making meaningful as a connections, meaningful, makes me feel, even now, I think that's what makes me feel like, successful, if I can say that. That's what makes me feel that way. Because when someone says, your song made me feel this way, like it made me feel, when I heard this, I felt this way. And that makes me feel like really happy. And it doesn't matter, like even if 1,000 people say, okay, God, what is this? When someone says this to me, I feel really happy, and I'm like, my job is done. My job is done. So that's kind of probably I think that would be something that I would feel very proud of as well, and I would want to leave.
Sure. And I mean, whether it's making connections or resonating with people and seeing themselves in your music, I know lots and lots of audience members and listeners out there are really enjoying it and looking forward to more. Dhee, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a lovely conversation, and it was truly lovely, and we're so grateful for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, Dhee, and please check out all her music streaming just about everywhere. As you may know, I live near Berkeley and in the Bay Area, but being born and raised in LA and having worked as a pediatrician and first responder during several disasters, my heart and soul are with the City of Angels. Please take a moment to consider donating to the American Red Cross, Mutual Aid, various GoFundMe efforts, Save the Children, and Baby to Baby to help support the victims of the LA wildfires. Hoping for a safe, peaceful, and supportive recovery for everyone. Till next time, I'm Abhay Dandegar.